Iñaki Ábalos is an architect and also a historian, having received both his design and PhD degrees from ETSAM, which is the architecture school in Madrid, where he's also now a professor of architectural design. He's also taught at Princeton, Columbia, the AA, Lausanne, Cornell. He's currently teaching at Harvard's Graduate School of Design. So if you want to know anything about schools, just ask Iñaki. A founding member, along with Juan Herreros, of the partnership Ábalos and Herreros, which dissolved in 2006. He's now partnered with Renata Senkovitz in Ábalos and Senkovitz Architects in Madrid, Arquitectos in Madrid, I should say. The office integrates architecture, landscape, and environmental concerns with the ambition of producing what they unabashedly call new notions of quality and beauty. Their willingness to conjoin and also address head-on both the technical and the aesthetic, two areas of our discipline that are all too often pitted against each other instead of brought together, is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him here to participate in our Cullinan seminar. One of Iñaki's long-standing interests has been the high-rise, a typology that he reminds us is already 150 to 200 years old. Its verticality, he claims, is capable of generating a new urban content, in part in offering the city new vertical landscapes. His book, The Tower in the Office, which I highly recommend, I have to say, which was co-written with Juan Herreros and published by MIT in 2003, which surprised me, I have to admit, last night when I realized that it was that long ago that it was published, because I feel like it's very, very recent, combines formal, programmatic, and typological analyses. It surveys historical models of the tower as well as office workspace. In a nod to Rainer Banham, the book also studies the effect of modern technologies upon both the tower and the office. Finally, the book dives, even if perhaps a bit too tentatively, into the waters of the new. It concludes on an optimistic note vis-a-vis possible formal and programmatic effects of contemporary technologies. Ábalos and Senkovitz's work continues this concluding thread, as I think we'll see today in the talk. So Ben van Berkel's seminar, which started us off in the Cullinan series this semester, introduced strategies of the hybrid and also of the recursive diagrammatic model. One tension that's been noted by many of the students in the seminar has been whether the high-rise can absorb and take advantage of the strategy of the diagrammatic model as easily as other types. So it's fortuitous to have Iñaki here in the same semester. We'll see if his articulation of a thermodynamic beauty, itself a hybrid, advances the argument that Ben put on the table in January. As Iñaki noted to the students during the Brocken talk before this, his own project is a hybrid one, his own general project, which I would say is his thesis, just to use a term that we want to hammer into a certain group of students in the school, which is rethinking modernism's combination of technology, nature, and philosophy from a contemporary point of view, and also establishing a new shared lexicon, I would say both verbal and architectural, for this thermodynamic understanding of architecture that collects that combination of technology, nature, and philosophy. And in an unpremeditated nod to St. Patrick's Day, I think we'll also finally see how Iñaki's interest in thermodynamic beauty turns sustainability, or the green, right on its head. Welcome, Iñaki Ábalos.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah, for this presentation that is putting everything difficult for me. I will try to explain our projects, giving them a kind of context on the basic ideas we are trying to develop and to fulfill in one way or another. No? So as I have talked before, formally in this talk with the students, we are interested in this idea of a thermodynamic beauty, in the sense that using the lexicon of thermodynamism can allow us to establish a very open lexicon, open in the sense that it allows us to share our lexicon with the lexicon of landscapers or physicists, specialists in energy, and to work in what we consider that is more interesting as a prototypology nowadays, which is this idea of the vertical escape, entities that are difficult to establish a line of separation among architecture, landscape, or energy means. And I'm trying to establish a kind of very synthetic panorama before I begin. And to do so, I'm going to show first two images that have been very important for us, even if they are really naive. This is one, and you see, okay, it's perfect, the light. And this is the other one. The first one is an image of J. Baldwin dome, a plastic dome, Buckminster Fuller inspired dome, and with a post-hippie, let's say, couple living inside, supposedly happily. And the other one is a beautiful drawing of the master, one of the masters of architecture in Spain, Alejandro de la Sota, of houses, summer houses in Alcudia, in Mallorca, Spain, where we can see leisure people lazily standing in a sofa, enjoying the breeze and the weather and the humidity of the whole scene. And I think that these two images have the potentially, or in our imagination, behave as the new primitive huts. The new, let's call it thermodynamic huts, primitive huts. One is relative to the, one is related to with the cold weather. Let's say, let's simplify. The idea that a bioclimatic construction has to be a shell that protects you, a glass shell, something that protects you for an exterior that it's uncomfortable, and that we have to oppose a gesture of minimum energy spent, but at the same time maximum protection, while in the other one we accept immediately, in a kind of very more than sensorial, I would say somatic way, instinctive way, the relationship with nature, how a good combination of natural and artificial elements. You see the water, maybe it's a swimming pool, seems to be a swimming pool, some trees, some textile protection, the shadow. So you see this, but you don't see the architecture, which is fantastic. No, the condition of architecture is dissolved in this kind of atmosphere, made of a combination of very simple bioclimatic techniques, natural elements and artificial elements playing together to obtain this kind of atmosphere. No? While one is really bringing into the schools of architecture in a very strong way the new technicians, I would say, as physicists or engineers specializing in climatic issues, and giving making a new statement on the schools of architecture. So we assisted some decades ago to the emergency of structural engineers. I can say, I don't know, Robert Lerry-Collet or Buckminster Fuller or whatever. So they began to transform the notions of William Le Mesurier and so many others in the States, that became in one moment, I would say, the stars. The ones that could give new insights to develop problems of form that were unresolved. Now we have this emergency of new techniques, and the thermodynamics as a main issue in the schools of architecture coming, I can say, coming in a very strong way. I mean, it's perceived in almost every school of architecture. So this primitive hut is bringing this. The other one is bringing the issue of landscape and the relationship among landscape and architecture. That if you take account of how the schools of the Mediterranean Sea, Italy, Spain, and so have begun to be concerned about the landscape issues, you will understand very easily why they are there as a kind of complementary kind of knowledge. No? So you can, so looking at these two huts, we can imagine that we have to choose, or we have to say, oh, we live in a humid, subtropical weather, we don't care about the domes of Mr. Fuller or whatever, no? Or we can be more, let's say, updated, more global, or more interested in a kind of synthetic point of view. And I think that both can help us to imagine a new scenario, how an architect has to be trained, a scenario that brings together the scientific apparatus of the physicists, with especially applied to parametric design tools, no? And at the same time it brings the landscape as an interesting issue. Putting together the three things, architecture, landscape and energy, for us, I mean energy issues, for us is then more than just a simple question of talking about sustainability or talking about bioclimatic issues. It's about for us it's about how the future architect is going to be constructed, and which kind of responses architects should be prepared to give to avoid the limitation of that we are having now of having just 5 superstars and the rest of architects doing very boring stuff. If we are able to produce something consistent for our society, we have to move in this direction. This is our thesis, and this is the basis of what we are working on. Our attempts are not a kind of demonstration, are just attempts of working in a milieu that in many ways is unknown for us, and we have to learn to know it. No? Well, this explains the situation, not the global situation nowadays so dramatically in the newspapers. I'm not going to talk about this. 3 issues then: vertical escapes, museums, and the relationship among nature, geometry, and architecture. Vertical escapes. The idea that verticality can be reconsidered in terms of its potentials, never developed formally. Precisely putting together these disciplines that have always been separated, adding new public dimensions in contrast with the high-rise history of the history of high-rising, and proposing programmatic and technical hybrids that use program in order to establish the rings of interchange. I will explain this later. This is one of the. They will be dissolved in the contingencies of the projects. But these are the topics I want to underline. The idea that if we talk about beauty, I'm not talking exclusively about thermodynamism. I'm talking mainly about beauty. Because I'm an architect. I'm not a kind of scientific guy. And the place where beauty has always been collected is called museum, the House of Muses. And today, I think it's very important, because it's obviously our generation will not have so many opportunities as the previous generation to give form to this typology, but we are absolutely concerned with the idea that the museums have to change. Not only because they have become centers of production where all the spaces play an equivalent role, and the experience of the museums has to be improved, showing processes and results at the same time. Not only because what probably will give us an entrance to the typology of the museums will be the environmental renovations that every 20-30 years they are obliged to deal with, especially with the growing interest in natural light and in establishing better energy balances all along the year, and then also introducing the verticality as a potential way to transform the notion, the very horizontal typology. It's a kind of it's a typology from the Enlightenment, which is expands, naturally expands. And we can begin to think about it in vertical terms, producing what I have called the new vertical Bundle cameras. All these elements will be around, and I just am presenting this as quick as I can. And the other thing is this thing of the most basic tool of architects that we have always had is geometry. The power of drawing, our ideas through the different techniques applied to very basic principles of geometry. I'm interested in testing. As all of us know, nature is not a given, is not what is there outside. It's a cultural notion, it's a cultural constructor, and it changes, and the way we look on nature, the way we use it creatively is closely related with different constructions, different cultural constructions. I have organized this with these pretentious names: transcendental abstraction, mimesis, romantic emotions, still lifes, because that basically can be described as simple geometries, rounded, doodle geometries, I would say, and maybe triangular or stereotomic geometries, and still lifes, composition of different elements. So, but all of them have a different role in our projects. And then, why I call, the first part will be about this transcendental abstraction, this part of the geometry which is, I think, embedded in the history of landscape and architecture, and also in the history of science. The idea that even if the presence of nature is chaotic, our first aim, our most atavic aim, is to introduce some kind of order, and we can see it in let's say, historical monuments in almost every culture, and we can see it in the most undeveloped technological research, and architects we have very frequently forgotten in these vast decades the how can I say, the sexiness, the attraction, the erotism of very simple geometries as means to establish a dialogue with nature. Notice what scientifics call an elegant formula. And a formula is elegant when it's really simple, when it's so simple that it's a surprise, so to say. Well, this is not so basic, but tries to. It was an experiment, a little museum competition in a very arid climate, in almost desertic, in Zaragoza, in Spain. Very cold at night, very hot during the days, and we, with a very conventional program of a couple of exhibition rooms and the rest of programs that you see in every museum. And we began to work with a very well-known physicist of Spain in order to establish what we call a kind of thermodynamic prototype of a museum. Now, the idea was, first of all, to reduce the interchanges with natural interchanges. Let me put in perfect Spanish that you will understand. Sistemas activos is active systems. Sistemas pasivos, passive systems. Forma arquitectónica is form. So this is not mine. It's Stefan Belling from Foster Associates, and describes quite well, taxonomically incredibly precise, the situation of what we've been dealing with, or they, high-tech architects, have been dealing with, and what should be ideally the role of different moments of the design process in the energy efficiency. Form is, 70-80%. Passive, what they call passive, I call construction systems, play the rest of, and only when something doesn't work too well, we should go for more sophisticated and not so easy to maintain active systems. So Returning to this, no? The idea of having a physical object of a given volume in a climate, in a given site, obliges you to make some basic decisions on form. It's the ideal form is not the cubic, it's more rectangular, less west-east orientation than north-south, less roof, so it's not a square, it's a little bit taller. So, and there is a moment where the equilibrium among the radiation that you have in all over the year and the form and the volume you have to deal with obtains a certain equilibrium. No? And this is, and then a part of the program is something, is underground with the part that auditoriums and so on that can be like this, it goes down. So the basic movements are in this sketch. The site is terrible, as so many sites nowadays. So it's a typical area that with these horrible buildings, no, that like crying to be there, not to show their presence. And so, and for us, it was an opportunity to make a kind of silent object, so to say. It's the only way that you can really differentiate yourself and establish a good relationship with the park that is going to be built just in the surrounding. This is another volume, the same volume, another sketch. And then the drawings, which are, the idea was to begin to work in a principle, in a statement that was to replicate the movement of people and the movement of fluids in order to establish a kind of synthetic form, something that at the same time describes the object thermodynamically and as a space for human activity. No? It's so simple it doesn't need to be described. It's a spiral where you move from the exterior, and interiorly you have a core where energy means connect the bottom and the top, as I will describe it later. Then the skin, a concrete structure with very few windows, and overlapped by a skin of lattices made of porcelain, white porcelain, that are giving a kind of vibration, are shadowing the whole volume, also the terraces that are here and there, and establishing a kind of more interactive facade that protects the concrete slab. No? The sections, and with the auditorium going up to the park and so on. It's a very synthetic. I would say it's rough, but I think it explains itself enough clearly as to begin with this idea. No? And then this is, for us the most important thing was again aesthetics. No? So how do we represent this kind of sobriety in thermodynamical terms? No? And we began to think about these lattices like creating almost evanescent finishing that is made of shadows. This is exactly the drawing I wanted to show. No? So once we had this is a very simple render, we were sure that we were in the right. In this very strong climate of Zaragoza, to have this kind of delicate shadowed space made of porcelain could be a kind of very simple, but at the same time I would say not only honest but clear or easy to communicate manifestation of our interest in the aesthetics of thermodynamism. Well, I'm not going to. I promise you, all these graphics are okay. believe me. But basically, it's about using thermal energy that in this climate that demand as much frigories as calories are ideal, no? And then a top that is connected in summer and in winter, that has what we call a bank of energy which is made, which is probably the most interesting technological mean, is a kind of a phase change material that stores energy and that changes its phase. It's designed, it's a paraffin. It is designed to change its phase in a certain temperature, so it dissipates energy exactly in the moment that is required to establish an equilibrium among the incomes and the business and the interior demand. Well, it's a very basic explanation, but this is located in the top with photovoltaic panels, and among the geothermal and the photovoltaics, and this element is regulated a system that goes up or goes down depending if it is hot or cold. No? And well, that's it. All the system is like this, and we have tried to maintain as simple as possible the whole mechanism of the building with the terraces on the top, looking to the most interesting views of the city. No? One is looking to the park that is just below, the other is looking to El Pilar, the famous cathedral of the center of the city. And here it is, as I have said, it's rude in it's the way it manifests itself, but at the same time it's delicate in the sense that it is continually changing and giving some kind of glimpses of spaces that are deeper or flatter. No? This is another experiment in very simple geometries, in very, I would say, traditional. That in this case has been built. This little house, this is the British Embassy in Madrid. This is the center of Madrid, Colón. And this neighborhood is a neighborhood of embassies. No? And this was a palace of the 19th century that had a little extra space that could be built. And they asked us to propose. But it was subject to so many regulations because there is a kind of ambiental protection for the area. And they were asking us if we were able to produce 4 apartments, no more than very big apartments that could be rented to ambassadors and people working in embassies. No? And we had to deal with the fact that the palace was protected and so on. So and we began to think. This is what we have built is a little cubicle, but stepped and protected to the sun glass box. It's not glass; it's stone glass, and it's made also with huge areas of ventilation, natural ventilation, protected by this ornamental motif that I will speak about later. No? And you see the trees and so on. And this is, in order to avoid, if you draw a single window, then you are trapped in the regulation because the window has to be like, I don't know, blah, 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 blah. So we escaped it through the only interesting thermodynamic invention that is present in our historical areas, which is the mirador, a double glass facade made of cast iron and glass that is open in summer and is closed in winter and creates a kind of self-sufficient landscape, a mini landscape, so to say, and it's still active and still works quite well. You have to know that believe me or not, Madrid is a city with a higher regime of winds than Chicago. So you can, historically and nowadays you still can use, if you are able to manage them, winds as the only resource to obtain comfort. During maybe 1 or 2 nights is too hot all over the year, because the regime is very good. In summer the winds at certain hour of the night, 1 a.m. or so, they dramatically change the orientation and come from the north. So for 4 or 5 hours you have very fresh wind, and well, it's something quite interesting. So we more than being graphically, so to say, historical, wanted to test the possibilities of the mirador and the possibilities of natural ventilation in this case. No? we had also the opportunity to deal with this tree oriented to the east. That was the only natural element in the little park of the palace, the Palacino. No? And also, as we had to connect with the Palacino, we could use very high floor-to-floor measures, no? Like almost 4 meters high. No? So we also had a volume of air, which is another very interesting thing to obtain some comfort. No? Well, explaining this, the whole idea of these elements was to protect. There is full-size sliding windows, and to obtain an image like a Carmen of Bizet, like a very Spanish, but it was about dealing with ornament in a historical context with a kind of distance, and at the same time dealing with the other neatness of the project, which was to become elegant, so to say. Well, this is the street level. And the principle of the thermodynamical principle, if this can be said, because it's so simple, is just having a little patio that accelerates wind, north orientation for the bedrooms, south protected by sun for the living rooms, and heat-free protecting east, and then so connecting different rooms in a kind of traditional way, but being able to establish a kind of ring to move along, and then going up to step in order to obtain for free huge terraces that can extend and become other rooms for the for the quality of life. So like it become compact, but at the same time terraced. These are the drawings of the facade, etc. And then, this is one of these very simple mechanisms that allow us to obtain like interesting outside. I mean, due to the fact that this is in the very center of Madrid, the fact that you can enjoy these spaces is almost unique, in the city. And then there is the question of the entrance, which has all these rhetorics of the high class materials and so on, and that we had to deal with, and we made it in a kind of perverse way, using stone, black granite, and mirrors, and all the elements that are the characteristic, but putting them in different ways in order to establish a kind of experience of the house that could be ambivalent. No? All the project is about this ambiguity, becoming traditional and becoming more, let's say, more contemporary, without losing a kind of connectivity with what one can expect being, let's say, a very traditional or conservative ambassador. The patio also is hidden in all the ducts of ventilation. So there is a ventilated camera, and then the thinner layer is expanded, so tubes are inside. You don't see any kind of tube in the building. And this is the mechanism of the opera, Carmen Bizet. Very simple mechanism that gives way to interesting effects of natural and artificial elements in shadows and also I forgot to say that it's not that important. The structure is made. This is the structure of the house. There is a concrete core, and then the perimeter is made of this kind of big stones, supported by steel that is not having total continuity, and is establishing a kind of multiplied sticks structure all over the house. The idea was to create an horizon, and also to create like a different scale. So you are sat or you are up, and you have two different windows. I'm talking about this ambiguity, this idea of having promenade of rooms that is so traditional, but at the same time can introduce interesting contemporary effects. Well, there's a project, another project in this vein, which I'm really interested in, is in Paris. It's a commission of the RATP, the public institution that controls the underground system of Paris, and then it's a project related with the Grand Paris project. The idea of having a kind of circle line surrounding the suburbs of Paris, connecting them and establishing a new type of subway station able to give centrality and identity to parts of the city that have not any kind of urban identity, linking them to Paris, so to say. There's a hidden agenda, political agenda, that the suburbs are independent and they want to put them in the same one. There is all this stuff, but I'm not going to enter into. So we were given, it was 3 officers, one from Paris, one from London, one from Madrid, and we all were testing in different sites the potentials of these new concepts. So we were working with Jasper Morrison because I immediately was interested in the idea of having of maintaining a kind of atmosphere of Jasper Morrison is a interior designer and that has had some relationship with architecture, and his objects have always a kind of and temporal dimension that I was interested in. So I was not interested in transforming the subway station into a kind of contemporary disco, so by maintaining the quality of the Paris, the tradition of the Paris subway. Well, so basically said that our idea was to give a kind of scale and verticality, and to wrap the subway station into the building, and to establish a kind of not only programmatic synergy, but also a real efficient system in terms of energy, using the potentials of the whole subway, the sunken structure of the subway. So the first gesture is so simple that doesn't need any explanation. The idea that it's not an ellipse, it's an oval, I don't know how to say it. It begins to wrap, to give circles and transform itself into something that grows vertically, as this one. It's so simple as this. And this is the first render of what we were. Also, we were working with porcelain, as every subway station in Paris, but in this new format, a very long, narrow strips of porcelain, white porcelain, that could adapt and give shape to this morphing among a vertical and a horizontal ellipse. Well, there are some details, I'm not going, very traditional that I love, and then this is the subway station, so to say. So the idea that once we protect with a kind of glass tube the metro in itself for security reasons and efficiency reasons, we can have really a clean atmosphere, different noise, more like an airport or more like a train station. So it can be open to natural light and can become something that stays basically the same, but at the same time has a completely different atmosphere. And this was the target in our project, the one that we were dealing with. And this was the first drawings to produce this, and the idea of this kind of stomach climbing up to the top of the building. And then there is the different levels, I'm not going to explain, and the public space. In Paris you always have to draw people to demonstrate that there is a very active public space. But basically it's an intermodal, with buses. Here you go down to and then the market and all these activities that. But this is these are the secret documents, especially this one, that I think is important. This is a photography of a wonderful David and Jade project in Whitechapel in London, the Idea bookstore, which has created with a commercial cultural activity, has created a huge cultural infrastructure for a neighborhood that had a lack of facilities, and that has begun to be has had to dynamize completely this neighborhood. No? So we added this kind of vertical things, showrooms and lofts, in order to give visibility and also to finance the whole operation. And this is basically what it is about, the project. And this is the site. And so we changed a little bit the scale to give a three-dimensional presence. And then establish this stepped tower with curved surfaces that I will explain later why they are so. This is how the cultural commercial part of the section is crossed by the tube. And then this is the section with some electrical cars, public electrical cars rented with Visa cards, that you can move. From the center of the city, you reach this area, and here you have different means of transportation that allow you to reach your house in a kind of zero emissions kind of vehicle. This is the utopia, they are selling, and that in one way or another will be less than a utopia, a dramatic neatness. So it will come in one way or another. So let me go on. The station has a previous line and a new line, so there are two stations. I'm not going to. This has been worked with specialists, and they have a kind of supermarket and the plaza. Again, the plaza with fairs, markets, concerts, etc. And then the whole structure with activities, and the physicality was taken directly from the project we were finishing, the Orfila, in order to give everyone a kind of direct experience of what we were trying to work with. These curved surfaces are trying to bring the sun in the rush hour moments of the day, allowing the sun with an heliostat to go inside. So you have, if not the direct ray of sun in your head, at least the shadows and brightness introduced by it. And also, this is the simple formula we were working with, which is first of all establishing a combination of program and a proportion of program that could become equilibrated among those activities that need to demand energy and those that need to dissipate, and also establishing a buffer space, the space of precisely the space of the tube as a place where the atmospheric qualities of the air can be interchanged among the infrastructure and the interior space. I'm not going to go too far into this, but the mechanism is serious and is well proportioned with contemporary technologies, and it works basically. Well, wonderful drawing. No? So the hand, the doodle, the idea that our relationship with nature can be obtained through kind of abstraction, as we have seen, but also geometrical abstraction, but also giving protagonism to our hand, and establishing a link among sensual exterior world and our brain. This is a drawing made. Believe me or not, this is a moment of inspiration. It's a Sunday morning moment. I woke up and draw immediately this thing. I knew I liked it, because it was what if thing. I still in my bed, I began to think, what if I mix compact tower with the bundle of towers of Torres Blancas in Madrid, like Banco de Bilbao. The same. One of my masters was Oiza, and this is a kind of steel building of office building, and this is a concrete bundle of terraced towers. What if they morph a kind of Frankenstein and establish a continuity? And this was the principle of. I mean, a couple of months later, again in Paris, they asked us, a group of architects, to give Parisians the opportunity to see how they could live in towers, because there is the lack of plots to build, so they need urgently to increase density, and they don't have like samples in the dorms they have in the suburbs, so socially conflictive. So we were asked to give them a kind of answer, and we were given some sites. Our site was incredibly beautiful. Well, the site is not that beautiful if you make a close view, but historically it's the path, the Roman path that connected Notre Dame with Saint Denis, and in the moment it connects with the Périphérique, and among the path was this one, obviously, and among these two mountains, and this is the Rose of Winds. And for us to build a tower in Paris with such a big amount of infrastructure and chaotic physical appearance, or physical visibility of the fabric, immediately, instinctively, I would say, move us into the idea of a topographical invention, and we began to think about the monuments of Paris as possible relationships, and we, even if this is the most, the most topical, the Montmartre, for us, the combination of a hill and some domes was very provocative in terms of what we wanted, and also because it was very close to us, so it's here. So in physical terms, it was our neighbor. Began to think about this, and then the first sketch became tested with different other different sketches. This is the concept. I mean, the whole project is resuming this, from this to that, going in vertical, and then some public facilities, then SketchUp testing the possibility of making smooth transitions and the effects that could be. I mean, I must confess that I was shocked by the similarity of this project and the Gina Gang Chicago thing that I have visited a couple of weeks. But I knew that this was made in the same moment. I mean, and in this moment, no one knew each other. I mean. And this, but this is a three-dimensional, while the other is bidimensional, I would say. No, but the other is built, and this is not built. This is the difference too. But anyway, this is. We were just testing very intuitively how much it could be pregnant, in which moment the thing became bizarre, and which moment became interesting, and in this moment we introduced another thing. We were working with people that were making the general plan, the master plan for Paris, and so on. So in this moment we introduced the population. We were said that the site formerly was expected to give way for a campus, for a university, because the access to the site is wonderful in terms of public transportation. So we decided that the mix of some kind of iconic shape, hybrid shape, young people going and living there the whole day could give a complete new identity. So real life at the bottom and an iconic presence in the ring of the city could be a formula that give way to a real urban transformation in the site. I'm not going to explain this too much, but this is the whole site is made with blocks of social housing that are much more regular and cheap and efficient. So no doubt about this. This is a kind of test of how it is seen and is perceived when you move around. As you can see, the principle is really simple. I mean, it remains attached to a kind of rectangular thing that is cantilevered no more than 3.5 meters, and then making slow transitions you can do this. And the program is made with a kind of campus that well, car park, but a campus that has associated learning center, other activities associated to it, and then this is the private, this can be private or public, a hotel, and then the upper part are lots and showrooms and so on. No? So, and the format is very simple. The triple, double heights are in the inner core, and the rest are made of, well, the materiality is just white, no more precision, and the different typical floors. The spaces, I mean, obviously this shape has thermodynamical implications. In terms of structural behavior, obviously rounded corners are smoother than the rectangular. And also, the having towers up puts the barycenter of the structure much more low. So in terms of wind and jerk and acceleration and so on, is very efficient, and also in terms of natural ventilation in the upper part. Also, the cantilever protects from the sun in Paris, and that's it. I mean, no other kind of requirements in terms of form were developed, but they are enough to give a kind of ambiguity and to create a ring of interchange in terms of energy, and to create an ambiguity among a topography and a skyscraper, no? What we like to call a prototype, a prototypology. No? And this is an experiment, a kind of sequela, leftover, a competition we won in Madrid, in a site that is really complicated, with one of the biggest loops of Madrid, very noisy, polluted office space. That our idea was against the drawing of Venturi, to say that architecture still has tools to give presence and I would say some sense to sites completely controlled by the highway system. The idea was to create an interior landscape with our own instruments of geometry that move in parallel to the movement of the car, are like friends that during 1 minute are close to you and moving almost in the same way. This is it's a little commercial building, and the merit it has is that it doesn't look like a little commercial building, no? And tries to manifest its presence in a kind of drastic way. No other elements than regulations, the fire protection, the simpler, and no grids, no strange sailing, big height, triple glass that allows us to have big surfaces of glass that work thermically and acoustically at the same time. The render for the competition, the area that the construction, and the penthouse, a kind of executive floor on the top that moves everyone to look up, and that allows us to hidden the air conditioning system, so you don't have the typical hat of the office building. It's like flat. And then we have trees and other little, there is a little park, and we use the natural means as water, trees and so on to extend and enlarge and give some identity to these spaces. And then also we use the reflections. It's really, kind of naked. There are no finishing, no kind. The quality comes from perception and from the extension of the elements and how they participate and modify the perception of the landscape. Instead of being something negative, becomes something that you can deal with, and then that gives you wonderful views of Madrid and of the mountains in the north. The use of marble replicates the movement of water in the sailing. It's very, very synthetic in this sense. No? And almost, I mean, the raised floor doesn't have any finishing, but you don't see any grid as this one. No? The finishings are almost domestic and simple, and the whole space is like gives you a sensation of floating in it, no? Which is and that immediately gives a kind of interest to the views on the city, the towers, and the highway as a new mode of landscape. No? The use of mirrors to introduce again landscape in the interior, and reflection and water, all of these kind of very typical special effects of architecture used to increase the intensity of the site without negating any of its realities. No? Well, let me go very quick now with a couple of projects more. This is the other idea, the very German idea that you climb up the mountain and you feel like spiritualized by it, but then you return home and begin to study geomorphological issues and how mountains are constructed and tectonic plaques move and so on. No? So the idea that there is rigor in the use of some geometries that seem to be complex, but in one way or another are simplifying the complexity of reality. And this was applied to this project under construction. We won a competition in La Rioja, and the place where the wines of Spain are made. And this was the train, and the high-speed train changed the situation, and this is how the train divided the city into north and south previously, and the project is about creating a kind, now that everything goes underground, creating a kind of green belt surrounding the city, and making a park in the place where the station is. We were the only ones that gave this very political issue the strength that the politicians needed, and this was the reason why we won, doing this very simple thing, transforming the infrastructural project into a kind of hills that lifts up and enlarges the belt, the green belt, and at the same time lift up a little bit, and then the rest of the fabric, the urban fabric, is relating, the new is relating with the context and giving some kind of verticality to it. Well, these are the drawings of the project, and this is the reality under construction. And the main thing is that we have changed the geometry that was completely circular into kind of a triangular one that I will explain. This is also for the park. Well, I'm not going to sell you how good urbanistically is this project, but I want to focus on the image. The idea that some parks, some infrastructural buildings and some towers can give way to a new form to use and experience the city. The residential towers extend in vertical helices, hanging the natural elements that are everywhere around, like big terraces. This is a good image, I think, that expresses the intention, the kind of space we want to look for. And this horrible model is made by my beautiful hands. I mean, it's the best model I can do. I mean, I'm really bad with my skills making models, but this is why the project is like this, because I mean, I noticed that having domes of 40 meters with a park was completely expensive and was not going to success. So I began to construct these simple triangular things and imagine that it could be simplified dramatically and at the same time could obtain what I call a kind of Bruno Taut quality, a kind of expressionistic. And it becomes immediately you can introduce columns or a kind of hypostyle room, and at the same, so it makes it much more cheap, and at the same time the whole station begins to look like a grotto, no? that extends the park on the top as a kind of natural continuity. No? That this was exactly what interested us. These are drawings of the real station under construction in this moment, where you see how much this thing, and you see here how the columns, these pyramids are floating, because we have the train tracks, so we have to be very, very smart putting columns. No? This is both stations, up and down. Okay, this kind of two layers. So this gives way to a triangular pattern for the park and a triangular pattern for the interior. I'm not going to explain this. Believe me, these plants are beautiful. The park is made with Teresa Galí, which is probably the best landscaper of Spain, and it's a beautiful idea that I think that changes the prototypical contemporary park. No? Anyway, here you see the spaces that we are dealing with. And this is the urban presence of with this huge, I would say, dome that is dividing and connecting the station and the bus, the train and the bus station, the towers, and the effect of a unique thing. This is the space. In reality, let me check. Yeah, this is under construction. And this is the sunken part. This is the structure. This one is probably the most clear. I mean, now we have the whole structure finished, and this was made like 3 months ago. Well, it's too long. Can I go for one more? One more. Then I'm choosing one more. Let me choose one. How can I move? Let me go. I don't see how. I'm going to talk of the last. I know. How to? I'm not used to Mac. How can I go?
Yeah. Can I try something?
No. This one. Where is the big screen thing? I need you now.
Now you need me.
Why do you have to?
Oh. Boo to me. Okay, sorry. Everyone can throw a tomato at me if they want.
Oh, you'll be done.
Down. Okay. There it goes. Sorry.
Great, thank you. Well, the last, just to give a sample of the idea of still lifes, and I finish my long talk. This is a photography of Le Corbusier, using everyday life objects to create a kind of. I think that this idea of how to manipulate nature and artificial objects in a kind of unique thing is quite important, because every time we have to deal with big scale projects or just with all fabric and new things, the idea of how to create, with all these elements, a kind of unique thing without, maintaining the respect for the identity of every object has always been very interesting and very crucial for us. No? And this was the technique, I would say, we applied when we were working on the Fundación Tapies, the first museum we have finished in Barcelona, very close to La Pedrera, which is here. This is La Pedrera of Gaudí, and which is the very first industrial building in the Cerdà example, no? The enlargement of the city of Verdun. Well, you see this. This is with the intervention of Antoni Tapies, which is now like 88 years old, still alive, and for us the idea was basically my more interesting idea was to establish a new way to understand this center of production. It was a printer, historically, an industrial, I would say a loft, and then it became a postmodernist museum with strange colors and geometries that didn't work, but basically in terms of regulations it was completely outdated in 20 years, and it had to be completely removed, all the postmodernist stuff, let's say, and re-establish a kind of presence of the historical building. Well, this is the view on the patio that was never well resolved. And this is how our project basically was an extension, a little extension of a new part for the most administrative part of the program, to allow everyone to enjoy the historical building and make that exhibition rooms, historical building, the roof terrace and other spaces could transform the experience of the museum that was completely simple. So you went down, saw the exhibition, and went up and went away, and now it's you really perceive the whole complexity of the construction of a museum with minimum interventions. Maybe more than showing you these images, I think the photographies or this comparison, no, among the new and the can give you some. So this loft space has given way to a very simple, almost identical construction system, but completely adapted to our means, and the whole idea was to wrap the new volume and the old volume in a single envelope. So increasing like more than 1,000 square meters the surface. We haven't changed any machine. We have obtained the same kind of energy demand that was the previous one. And here you have, like in the advertisement of bold people, old and new. We are transforming this. This was air-conditioned, simulating like tectonic walls and so on. We have changed these things and brought new light to it and changed it, and I would say clean the whole thing, giving back wood deck for the surface that changes color, sound, experience, and leaving the structure as much as possible as it was already in the beginning. These columns have been transformed because the situation is new. This is new, the way you move inside. The presence of the area to store paper, now a library, like a central presence. Knowledge is like, and then the new skylights that were really dramatic, and we haven't avoided them, but we have constructed a textile envelope that brings you the natural light, but you don't see the form, and at the same time you are able to perceive exclusively the historical building without knowing anything of the new language up there. So in a way, we've been talking about continuity, but differentiation. A lot of elements are new, but the spaces in between are like establishing a dialogue. These are the columns that existed already. So, and we use them to establish the other structure. And this is how you move. You see all the menus, all the activities, no? And also the construction system in one way or another of the new part is closely related, no, with by using contemporary elements to what we have seen. And also we have opened to the patio, to the interior patio, the construction with this little pavilion that gives way to a terrace. Formerly it was invisible, and we think that in Barcelona the presence of the life of the patio is key to understand the vitality of the city. So here we tempted Antoni Tapies to make a new proposal, and he was keen enough to produce this beautiful shock that established an incredible dramatic tension with the surroundings. With 88 years. Thank you very much for your patience. Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to reconcile kind of two types of operations that you seem to be engaged in your work. One is the kind of biomorphic projects we saw, say, in some of the subway stations that operate around the torques ovals, and the other is, I guess, the kind of more restrained, almost generic forms of the kind of much more simple powers. And it seems like there's, trying to understand how you're operating both modes simultaneously, or what sort of leads you in those directions. It seems like there's maybe a kind of obsession in more public moments of projects to create a kind of continuity of form, a kind of almost non-hierarchical kind of continuity of form through the faceting and through the kind of the project. And then in the tower moments, where usually we think of towers, often people go to great lengths to make towers seem like these single entities. You reinforce the horizontals always in these kind of very dramatic ways, and then not even reinforce the horizontal to break up the tower into a stack, but then add these little balconies. Even in your more organic tower, the horizontals would then produce a little balcony for the individual. And it seems like there's a kind of exploration through form in a kind of relationship to the individual all the way out to the public, or some sort of beyond the kind of some of the other environmental and thermodynamic questions of beauty that you brought up. And I was wondering if maybe you could speak to that.
No, I think it's a very serious explanation of many of the decisions. I mean, this tension about is always present in the way we discuss. I don't know if it is in the way we design, but it's always in the way we discuss among us on the decisions we take. No, so how every single human being can really stay there comfortably or not. No, I'm always worried about not being too iconic or too driven by like formal, exclusively formal approaches, but about what I call the somatic experience, you know, of the individuals, and I think this can be perceived easily. I mean, not easily probably, no, because I mean many do it. Many people work in this way without a kind of reasonement. You know, it's implicit, no, this idea. But for us, the idea that these primitive huts I have shown that were about people living, enjoying life. Basically, in two different climates, no? And are for me key. No, all the elements that are represented in these two, the photography and the drawing, are the elements we are manipulating and trying to manipulate when we design. So this idea that the thermodynamic beauty is not a kind of exclusively formal or geometrical thing, but a somatic experience is quite embedded in our proposals. That's for sure. The other thing is about the authenticity. One of the good things of giving lectures is that you discover things that I have never thought about, because everyone says this. No, I mean, and it's absolutely true that I am almost, and Renata, we both are almost unable to draw the typical vertical grid of 90% of skyscrapers you see. And I have no explanation, it's like this, but I have one, a posterior one, that maybe is good or maybe not. Is that we've never been interested in, I have always been interested in high-rise. I've never been interested in becoming the tallest or the slenderest. No? I can say this, no? Slender, no?
Most slender.
Most slender, okay, whatever. Well, you understand it. I've been coming to all the universities of the States, but I will never speak a fluent English. So the idea of the idea of verticality cannot be so simple. No? So like becoming really tall. It's about how do you deal with different parts of the section and how every different height is giving you a different experience of the city and the surroundings and so on. And this gesture that I'm doing is exactly what we try to do, just to physically demonstrate that these are places, and these places are the main and the most interesting thing of building a vertical structure, to create places, horizontal places. Well, this is an explanation, but it's made after these questions have been posed on the table.
It's a little bit of follow-up on Troy's question, but there are two ways in which architects, I think, have approached the notion of environment. If you use the term very largely, not simply keeping things warm, but just defining space in some way. One of them is to somehow temper it, and to say that what we do is to control that in some way. That's particularly useful to, I think, the thermal part of the argument, or the sustainable part of the argument. The other is to amplify it, which is the device used by other architects to somehow construct, not to temper environment, but to actually produce environment in some form. I'm wondering how you see the relationship between the two. You see what I mean? One is sort of to put on a sweater, and the other one is to say, I'm going to find the loudest thing in my closet.
Well, I think that part of the answer comes from the interest, the double interest in both techniques to approach comfort that I have shown. The kind of scientific, approach, parametric, the use of parametric tools in order to define comfort, etc., and to adapt technologies. And the other one is like having a kind of closer relationship with nature and using all the exterior means that are in the urban context in order to obtain some benefits, direct benefits on the experience you have. I think that this doesn't answer what you say, but I think that the use of both techniques at the same time, which is what we try to deal with, gives us a kind of very hybrid understanding of the world environment. So depending on the use, on the activities, the main activity, or the scale or the program, I think that we go more for a kind of more, let's say, affirmative kind of statement on the program, or is more circumstantial. So there are some programs that definitively oblige you to some kind of rigor and discipline and give much less room to experiments than other programs. So in this sense, I would say that we have always been in a very open way contextualists, because the use of geometry or the intensity of our thermodynamical approach depends on financials, depends on the client, depends on the context. And I have no problem in having this adaptation. So I'm not talking in this sense. I don't think the principles are rigid. We can be more serious in our approach, or we can be more adaptive. That's for sure. Go ahead.
It seems like there's a consistency in your work with, even in both partnerships, to do really large public buildings. And I guess I've always just been curious to hear you. I guess I've just always been curious to hear you articulate your relationship to small projects, or maybe the intentional or the deliberate kind of avoidance of those projects. And maybe especially in light of the idea that you started your lecture with the two images of the primitive huts as these small private dwellings. And also as what I see as maybe a way of forming an opposition to the five architect domination that you talked about. It seems like maybe an untapped realm of your practice that I'm just curious to hear you talk about.
Well, I have tried to organize the lecture in showing both scales together and showing how each scale gives some kind of interesting shadow to the other. No? In this sense, I think that the practice we have stabilized can be understood as so many others, opportunistic. Yes, I mean, we have to take advantage of every single situation, but the idea is that the focus in our case is to establish a method that allows us to take advantage of every single situation in order to give light to the other possible situations. So when we have the opportunity to work with big scale projects, we are preparing the tools for some little experiment at the same time, and obviously for many reasons the small projects are easier to be built than the bigger, especially with the crisis we have had these last years. So, but once we have made these experiments, I'm sure that we can return to the others with 10 times more intelligence embedded in our brains. No? So it's a method not to be trapped in the excuses of scale. I'm really absolutely interested in the small projects. At the same time, I have always been interested in skyscrapers, and I don't see any contradiction in this dual interest. And I think that this retrofeeding system is so easy for me to understand that both are giving light to the other. That I think for me it's the ideal situation, to be honest, because small projects can be made in, let's say, 1 year and a half. You only deal with a couple of people, one client, small construction company. So it's like the film directors making advertisements for TV. No? So sometimes they discover many more things than we believe making the advertisement, and much less making the film.
We continue tomorrow with Neeraj as your respondent at the lunchtime conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.